Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, we're back again this week. John is in the call-in mode this week, so we are hopefully I remember how to do this. You know, it's only been a couple of months since we've done the call-in thing. John, thanks for joining us again today. Thanks for calling in.
You're welcome.
Well, good. I think I got it. I hear you. I think the people hear you as well. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off. We got our usual 4 segments, and we're going to start off with Major League Baseball because the season is here. The first game is on the 24th. I believe that it's on Thursday if my dates and everything are great. And so those are that's the first games. We've kind of talked about how this, John, basically we've talked about the fact that we need some sports because we need something to at least provide some sort of distraction other than binge watching Friends some more. I don't know if you've done that, but, we need something other than those kinds of things to keep us occupied. And I believe Major League Baseball is one of your favorite sports to watch.
Well, it was one of my favorite sports to play, baseball, but watching it during the regular season as it's not something I regularly do. I mean, I don't watch the whole game. I'll watch segments of it. But right now, I'll take it, to be honest with you. Because as I mentioned in the past, it's not only, I think, a good distraction, I also think sports can unify people as well. It unifies people across political, the political landscape and so forth. So it's something that I think is needed, and it looks like baseball is a sport that they can definitely pull this off. I mean, I watched the Yankees and the Mets. I watched 4 or 5 innings of their game Saturday. One of the exhibition games, and it looked pretty cool. It looked fine to me. I mean, the stadium was empty, but they did pipe in music and crowd noise and things like that. The had one player for the Yankees that's going to wear a mask the whole time, and he batted and homered with it on. I thought it was interesting with what they did is with the empty seats in the stands, they put a big it's like a camp, it's like a tent basically in the over the first 4 or 5 rows behind the dugouts, and a lot of the players that normally sit in the dugout set up there, to increase social distancing. So I think they kind of got it figured out, and so far with baseball, their numbers in terms of positive tests have been extremely low. I think the question will be once they start traveling and staying together at hotels and so forth, can they keep those numbers down?
I think one of those things would be, in terms of keeping the numbers down, would be what they do when they travel. So, I mean, if the teams stick to their hotels, and they don't bring in people from outside, out of the community and that kind of stuff, I imagine they can mitigate their exposure to COVID-19. And I would say that's
yeah, they can, but they're not in the bubble per se like the NBA. Right. They are, and it will take a lot of discipline among the players to do that. Mm-hmm. And I have confidence that most of them will, but I also, they are baseball players are also part of our society too, and not everybody follows all the rules that normally in society. So there will be some who will probably be more of a risk taker than others.
I've often thought, and you can tell me this whether it's true or not, but like when it comes to an athletic team and that kind of thing, the players themselves are the key to policing each other in terms of discipline and that kind of thing, because they want to win, they want to be able to play, and I imagine that's the peer pressure will be more acute than it would be, say, if the coaches, managers, or whatever were the ones trying to get them to follow the guidelines.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it takes some strong leaders, though, to enforce that, because otherwise there's also a movement against being a rat too. So you have both of those things that are going on. You have the ones who are taking this seriously and don't want this to ruin what they're doing, and you got others who have that mentality that I don't want to tell on somebody either.
Right. Well, and so I think that will play into who wins and who doesn't this particular
Could be.
60-game
That's exactly
season.
right.
I mean, because it's often true that the teams with winning attitudes are the teams that are able to work with each other and that kind of thing, but also the ones who show up with a serious mind, focused on the objective. And when it comes to sports, I mean, the objective is, when it comes to professional sports, the objective is to win and get paid, basically, for winning. And so I think
and it is a short time. It's a short season. 60 games is 2 months, so it's a 2-month season, which is a third of the normal baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that like I said, baseball has done how they set the schedule up. You're basically playing your own division and the opposite division. So travel is going to be cut down, which is going to help. The only real big travel issues are the West Coast teams. There's from Seattle to Houston and even L.A. to Seattle and those areas. It's a little bit longer, but I'm really looking forward to it. The opening day is Thursday, and Friday everybody plays, but I think Thursday is the first start of the season.
Yeah, and so kind of using the guidelines that we were just talking about, the usual guidelines for who might win in Major League Baseball, pitching talent, hitting, and those things, and that kind of stuff. Plus the added, discipline necessary to focus on playing baseball above all else. I think when you look at that, what do you see? Which teams do you think are going to be the ones to come out on top this year?
I think it's absolutely impossible to predict because you just don't.
Yeah.
Obviously, the teams that have the most depth are going to be at an advantage. Quality depth, because I just don't think you can predict exactly, the health of teams. If a team is hit with the virus, then it's going to knock players out for a minimum, I think, 10 days at least. And though those players are probably going to be fine, they're not going to be able to play.
Mm-hmm.
And in a shortened season with only 60 games, losing some of your key players for 10 days could be catastrophic to your success. So I don't, obviously the Dodgers and the Yankees have a lot of pitching, and they have a lot of depth, and in the normal year, those two would be a heavy favorite. But this is such a tricky deal. It's hard to predict. I actually think, locally the Reds could be really good this year. They've gone all out. They've got they've signed some good players. Their pitching staff should be good, deep. I do like the Reds' chances, but it's really a crapshoot, to be perfectly honest with you, and trying to figure out who's going to be healthy and who's going to be hot at the right time.
This feels like one of those circumstances. Real quick, I think it was Jason Harbison with the Red Legs Radio Report. I believe he was saying this either Saturday or when he was on Brian Webb's show recently. He was talking about the fact that in a 60-game schedule, you can't really have a 3 or 4 game losing streak. Like, you have to be able to mitigate your losing streaks. You have to be able to, you don't have to win every game, but in order to get to the postseason, you just can't have a skid, because it's just, as you mentioned, it's a third of a season, of normal season, and that could be catastrophic, any kind of losing streak.
Yeah, it's magnified, a 3-game losing streak when it's a third of the season. It's similar to a 9-game losing streak, and to be perfect in a lot of ways, or 8 or 9. But, it's what I like about it is that, I think most people would tell you that it's hard to get into baseball, obviously, because the game lasts a long time and the season lasts a long time. Well, the season is not going to last a long time.
Yeah.
It's going to be short. So I think the players are going to have a little bit more incentive, perhaps. Not that they don't normally try, but I think the intensity is probably going to be there more so than an everyday game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the managers are going to have to manage that way as well.
You mentioned the intensity. One of the things that usually drives me crazy about watching Major League Baseball is when you see, like, what could be a bang-bang play, but a batter may hit the ball in a way, and then they don't like how they hit it, and so then they don't really put forth the effort, or it doesn't look like they do, to try to beat out a throw. And if, as a person, growing up, and your coach is always trying to get, tell you every play,
yeah,
it'll drive you crazy watching Major League Baseball or any professional sport, I guess, for that matter, when you see players not play with the intensity every play. And this may be a thing that changes this particular season. And also, it's an excellent opportunity for those players, because you mentioned, if somebody gets sick and they're out 10 days, if they can bring in somebody, or they already have people in the pipeline or on the roster that can get an opportunity to step in there, it's an excellent opportunity for us to see some unknown players to really have a breakout season.
Yeah, it could be. And in fact, this in a way, with the virus in particular, this may be of a benefit to young players.
Mm-hmm.
Not only can they get over things quicker, but and tend to be more healthy, but they could be given more of an opportunity. That can also be out there. I mean, it's just so hard to predict in any sport right now. Who's going to be the favorite, or who's going to end up winning, because you just don't know health-wise, to be perfectly honest with you. It'd be nice to know. In a weird way, if you could figure out which team has already had all their best players that have been sick and now they're over it,
yeah.
In a lot of ways, those teams could actually be benefited by it.
I guess I didn't really think about that. They've not really announced, what players may have tested positive by name. They may give numbers and that kind of thing. But
yeah, the most notable player is Freddie Freeman of the Braves.
Right.
I mean, he's the best player I think that I'm aware of in baseball that has had it and has recovered from it. And he is a perennial all-star for the Braves, and the Braves have had a couple of players who've had it.
Mm-hmm.
And they interviewed Freddie Freeman, and now he's not the one that just had asymptomatic issues. I mean, he had a temperature of 104.
Yeah,
and he really struggled with it, but he's back and he's playing. So,
he's the one. Whenever he got sick and they were trying to negotiate how they were going to bring the season back, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one that basically said, "This is real. Let's not take this as a joke or whatever. This was really hard on me." And I thought him talking about his illness actually was kind of a turning point in the negotiations in some ways, because it kind of, I say a turning point, maybe not positive in some ways, because it seemed like Major League Baseball was on track to get started in the first of this month, and then they had they couldn't come to any kind of agreement between the players and the owners, and so it took longer. But I think that was enlightening for the players to really challenge the owners to make sure everything that could possibly be in place is in place to make keep everybody as healthy as possible.
Yeah, but he is playing, so yeah. He's gotten over it and so forth. He is playing. He's probably the most notable player, and I learned this weekend too. I was with the golf, just changing the subject, is Jack Nicklaus admitted that he and his wife got it back in March.
Yeah, I saw that, and I mean, fortunately for them, they were able to overcome it.
Yes, they're fine.
And, yeah. Because so many in their age range, so many stories of people who got.
Yeah, he's 80 years old.
Yeah, but back to the baseball real quick. For anybody, I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a casual fan of Major League Baseball. I've just never really been a huge baseball fan. But in a strange sort of way, I'm more excited about this particular setup than I would have been if it had been a regular season. Because I say that because the variables make it worth watching or paying attention to on a daily basis.
And in the sense that it's just new, or in the sense, are you talking about because every game matters more?
Well, not only every game matters more, but all of the information from every game matters more, because it affects the next week, which means as you mentioned, I mean, it's such a long season and the games are often so long. And as I said, sometimes professional players don't perform the way you expect them to effort-wise. that kind of turns people off. But this particular situation sets up so that every play is more interesting, every day is more interesting, every game is more critical, and I just think that raises the interest for me.
And here's the other thing too: is that it's another reason why even non-baseball people should be interested in it. If baseball can pull this off without any major issues, that is really going to, I think, help high school and college.
Yeah, because that's what we saw in March, is that once the pros went a certain way, everybody kind of followed suit. And we talked about this, if baseball had gotten started earlier and things had been in place, it probably would have helped us to this point, no matter what the case numbers are, because there would be, at least some example of how things can be done in a mostly safe or as safe as possible manner, and that's an encouragement for people who want to see sports.
I agree. So again, we've repeated this in the last couple of weeks, that, if we want the return of high school sports, two things have to happen. Number one, our numbers have to start going down, and so far that has not happened. And number two, we better hope that the NBA and the pros and things like that can pull it off.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, the junior golf tour stuff continued on this past week. I just thought I'd give some people some updates on some things related to that and the upcoming high school season because, they do get to start July 31st for golf while all other fall sports are still on hold. And so real quick, one of the things that happened last week, I forgot to write this down on my notes. But anyway, one of the things that is going to happen is that August 3rd, I believe it is, the Glasgow Lady Scotties Invitational is set for August 3rd at Willow Oaks. And then the Berrien County Trojanettes Invitational is August 8th. So those are the couple of high school matches coming up in the next 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The Lady Scotties one is actually 2 weeks from today. So, and then 5 days after that will be the Berrien County Trojanettes one out at Barren River State Resort Park. So it's good, and some of our golfers have been participating in different tournaments. One thing I did want to point out is Chase Landrum, who's I believe he's a rising senior at WKU. He qualified for the Kentucky Open. It will be played July 28th through 30th at Triple Crown Golf Club or something of that nature. I believe that's in Northern Kentucky. So congratulations to Chase. He's had a pretty solid summer. Playing on the KYPGA events, but it's good to see. It's good to see that they are getting that opportunity to play. And we've mentioned, sports figuring it out. Golf is one that has figured out how to hold their tournaments and follow some guidelines and play events. John. Yeah,
golf has made it through this crisis. And of course, it is it's a sport where. You think golf and tennis can manage this pretty well. They're both outdoors. There's no contact, and as long as the players follow the social distancing aspect, then it really should not be that much of an issue or problem. And the professional tours have done quite well, and the amateur tours and the junior tours, and I would expect that the high schools will also transition quite well to this.
Yeah. I found my little note here. It was the Kentucky Girls Junior Amateur that was played last week, and Abby Lee and Bree Russell, Glasgow and Barren County players, played in that. Did pretty well overall in that event, but that was one of the more recent ones, and I think we mentioned last week Landry Steenbergen had played in an event the week before, but also this past week, Nina McMurtry won a playoff hole in a tournament, and again, it's good for these players to get out there and get their chance to play. I'm looking forward to it. I was thinking about this because I mentioned Chase Landrum today. He was over playing at Indian Hills in an event, and it's like what is it? heat index is like 106 or something today, 104.
Yeah, the heat index has been quite high the last few days, but it doesn't really, the people that, especially the younger ones and things like that play golf every day, they seem to adapt to it, quite easily. I would melt right now playing in it, but those guys and gals, they seem to handle it pretty well.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the melting. That's exactly, I was thinking misery whenever I saw the heat index and they were out there playing. And I think he teed off like at 2:30 this afternoon. I was like, well, good for them. I mean, if you love that, then that's good. And it's a great way to stay in shape. I mean, it'll melt off whatever blubber you might have out there in that heat.
Yeah, but if you're not used to it, it's probably not the greatest time to play right now. I mean, because it is just, Kentucky's famous for this. It can be July and August can get it can go from being warm to miserable at any time, and the heavy humidity and dew factor and all that other stuff that comes with it is you can just walk out the door and start sweating this time of year.
Yeah, on the upside, though, you get what we have outside right now. As I look out this window and the wind is blowing the trees around, you get some nice pop-up storms to cool you off, if you don't get struck by lightning.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Of course, you're from the area of the country that has, it's not like you're immune to high humidity.
Well, yeah, and of course, when you're from Mississippi, you set your clock by the afternoon thunderstorm. So, yeah, you're right about that. Meanwhile, golf otherwise outside of high school has been going on. I know, several of our major events got pushed back to the fall, and I think, the Masters is coming up September 3rd, so a month and a couple of weeks from now. Is that correct?
The PGA comes up first. I think the Masters was moved later in the year.
Okay.
Yes, the PGA in California is the first major that I think is up, and then the Masters is sometime a little bit after that.
Yeah,
they just got through playing up in Ohio. It's Jack Nicklaus's tournament called the Memorial that normally played in Memorial Weekend was played this past weekend.
Yeah, it's
that was Tiger's first adventure into playing competitive golf since all that. He didn't fare too well.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of people kind of taking shots at him from what I could tell for his performance, and I was like, this feels like a great time to excuse anyone's miserable performance in anything.
Well, yeah, and then the course was very difficult to play, and the weather, it was a difficult weekend, to be perfectly honest with you. I kind of liked it. I watched some of it yesterday, and I like it when the professionals struggle. I mean, I don't like it when they birdie every hole. I like it when they double bogey and triple bogey and hit in the water, and I think that makes it more interesting. And they had that course set up. The greens were extremely fast, and it was about 20-25 mile an hour winds too. And it was fun to watch the pain on those golfers' faces. It would look like how I play, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it makes them a lot more relatable, doesn't it?
Well, the Brandon, what's his last name, Chabot or whatever, the guy that's gained 40 pounds and hits it about 400 yards, Chambleau or whatever his name is. He's the one getting all the attention. He took a 10 on a hole, which is quite fun to watch because I've had 10s. I probably had more 10s than I actually legally counted, and he actually had a 10 on a hole.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, look, John, the winning score was a 9 under. Was that John Rahm? Is that who won it?
John Rahm, yep.
But his Sunday was +3. So I mean, it's that last day was pretty brutal on him.
Yeah, I think only one or two guys were even under par.
Yeah. I mean, you have you had Fitzpatrick. He shot 4 under on the last day, and I'm sure everybody was looking at him like, "What is your secret on this course today?"
Yeah. No, it was a tough day, but that's like the U.S. Open. That's my favorite major because the U.S. Open's always difficult, and like I said, I like to watch the guys get mad and struggle and all that other stuff. I think it's kind of neat.
Your choice of entertainment when it comes to golf is questionable, John, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's I like them frustrated and angry and snap a club occasionally. It's fine with me.
Yeah. So you also watch NASCAR for the wrecks, huh?
Not necessarily the wrecks, but an occasional fight after the race is okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, might as well up the entertainment value.
Yep, that's right.
I hadn't really thought about this with the intensity of the baseball season. That could be interesting too, in terms of whether or not cooler heads prevail in certain.
Well, they passed the rule where you can't fight or argue with the umpire.
That's right. I forgot about that. You are correct. So we'll see if they can adhere to that, because some people are going to get a little bit salty probably in some of these circumstances.
But I thought there was already a rule of something that you couldn't fight in baseball.
Yeah, well, that was the written rule. The unwritten rules override the written rules, John.
Okay, I got you.
All right, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's in Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, we mentioned that baseball will be back beginning this Thursday, first game this Thursday, and then full slate on Friday. And the NBA is right around the corner. I believe their first game is supposed to be July 31st, so that's a little less than 2 weeks away. And they've been in their bubble. They seem to have their testing down, and it's rather interesting. They've had some players leave, but a couple, Zion Williamson predominantly among them, has left this past week for family emergency purposes. They've had some who decided not to show up because they decided they either had an injury or they just weren't going to do this. Their team was out of the playoffs already, so to speak, even though they've brought teams that supposedly had a shot of making it. And so I think the intrigue the difference between the NBA intrigue and the MLB intrigue is this: we had an NBA season and it got shut down. And so they've tried to figure out a way to finish the NBA season. And, that's to have 8 regular season games left, and then the full slate of playoffs, all to be played down in Orlando at Disney World. And I think that makes things a little bit interesting in terms of who's motivated to try to win. And I just don't know. I don't know if the impact of that is that we wind up with like a 1999 shortened season where we wind up with Latrell Sprewell and the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals against the San Antonio Spurs, or if it's chalk and we wind up with like the Lakers and the Bucks or the Clippers and the Bucks. I mean, I don't know which way that pans out. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think it's the same issues that we had with baseball. It's hard to predict. A lot of it will depend on not only the virus but injury.
Oh yeah.
I do think just my gut tells me the teams that are the most experienced and probably the most mature will handle this situation better than the teams that may be more distracted or whatever. Because it is a commitment. You could be down there for close to 2 months in this so-called bubble. Now, listen, it's not like you're in a jail or anything like that, but yeah. I mean, they can swim and fish and play golf and things like that, but they are away from family, and you are kind of like imprisoned in your own world a little bit. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of dead time, and I think maybe this is where it comes to team unity. Can you get along enough, for this period of time? It's different because all teams have to spend a lot of time together, just a natural part of the season, but they don't necessarily live together, and that's kind of what they're doing right now. And I think you can count on LeBron and the Lakers they're going to be focused and ready to play because he is focused and ready to play. You can tell that he is very serious about winning another championship, and he's going to try to keep everybody he can focused like that. So I don't have any doubt that they're going to be ready to play. I don't have any doubt that the Clippers will be ready to play because of their personnel. They got a lot of seasoned players, and plus they got a great player too, and he always seems to be focused. So I think those guys are going to be fine. Some of the other teams, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. There's no home court advantage anymore. Does that take away from upsets or not? I'm not really for sure how all this goes. I'm not real crazy about having best of 7 series.
Yeah, I do wish I would shorten that.
And it's a TV deal, it's a money deal. I know all that stuff, but especially for the first couple rounds, I thought a better approach would be best of 5, or I would even go for best of 3, because I think once teams get down, there's probably going to be an urge, so let's just get this over with where they can go home and get out of the bubble.
One team that I do think benefits from how this has panned out would be the Toronto Raptors, because you talked about team unity and teams that get along. This Raptors team, I mean, they were second in the East before this all got shut down at 46-18. They don't have Kawhi Leonard, but they were a good team before Kawhi got there. And I don't think DeMar DeRozan was the key to them being good. I think it was Kyle Lowry, and what's happened is Siakam has come along and turned into an outstanding player on both ends of the floor. And they went down there in the bubble. I think they went down there. They isolated themselves, I think, 10 days before everybody else did. And they seemed like a team that was like, okay, we have a real chance to do something, and this kind of plays perfectly into what we have.
I agree with you. That's a real good point. That is a team that seems to be focused. You have not heard any whining or complaining from them about the hotel room's not big enough, the food service isn't good enough. Like you've heard from some of the other NBA players, they've been very quiet. A lot of them have been in Canada. They're, not everybody that plays for Toronto, lives up there, but most of them have stayed up there. And of course, Canada has done things a lot different than the United States. They're actually in a lot better position than we are, and they have been very quiet and very focused, and I agree. I think they're a dangerous team. Good point.
Yeah, and now I still think they mentioned yesterday, I think it was, that the season awards will be based on what happened before the season shut down. And so that kind of nails it down, I think, as Giannis Antetokounmpo being the MVP because his numbers were so crazy this year. But at the same time, I do wonder how all of this affects when they come back. I mean, I imagine he as a player will not be rusty. I imagine he's been working on his game because he's gotten to where he is as a player from where he came from because he has worked so hard. But I do wonder if the rest of his team has felt the way he does. And then I look at a team like Philadelphia, which everybody keeps thinking is going to turn the corner someday, and they seem to be a team that this circumstance doesn't fit them at all.
Yeah, I don't have any confidence in Philadelphia because I don't have any confidence in their best 2 players.
Right.
To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, their 2 superstars do not seem like the most focused and mature people I've ever seen.
Right.
And so if I say that I think Philadelphia's going to do well, it goes against what I just said earlier. I think it's a team that has experience and it has focus and so forth, and I don't buy Philadelphia at all. I mean, I'm not crazy about when their best player can't shoot it outside of 5 feet and he's a guard.
Right. I've written down here in our little notes to make some wild and inaccurate predictions. So here comes my first wild and inaccurate prediction. The Washington Wizards will win the NBA Finals.
The what?
The what? Yes, that's right. The what? The Washington Wizards. The Washington Wizards will win the championship. That's my wild and inaccurate prediction.
In basketball. Are you talking about this year?
Oh, sure. Why not? I don't think they'll ever win a championship, to be honest with you.
No, they didn't even bring their best players. No, they got no chance.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. They sent these 22 teams down there. They decided ahead of time who would be eliminated, and I guess they decided they needed to have one extra team in the East just to have an extra team in the East. And the Wizards were the lucky winners of that because they were only 5.5 games out of making the playoffs. Yeah,
they have no interest in playing. New Jersey, who's like the 7th seed, they probably have had more departures than any team.
Yeah.
So they don't, like I said, there's just so many teams that have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right. Toronto, Milwaukee, I think Boston, the Clippers, Lakers, and I actually think Utah has a chance. You know, their two best players have already had the virus, so we know they're not going to probably get it.
Yeah, you know, that is true. That's a good point you made there, because the Jazz have they were early entrants into the COVID stakes, and so they're out the other end of it. And
they do have a real good shooter that's out though, which he had shoulder surgery, and that does hurt them. But Mike Conley, their point guard, is a very mature person and so forth. So they kind of fit some of the things I was talking about. But really, it's probably going to come down to those four to five that we mentioned.
Yeah.
Barring, the good news about the bubble is it should, it should keep the virus out if everybody follows protocol. The bad news about the bubble is if it gets in the bubble, then you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably Katie Bart at the door at that point. You know, it's funny you mentioned the Nets. I mean, they're basically bringing a G League team to play in this thing.
Yeah, they really are. It's just not the two superstars who, Kevin Durant and
Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie, it's not just them, but they've got some of the other real good players that have basically decided not to play. I think DeAndre Jordan got the virus. But he got it a month ago. He could play if he wanted to, but he's opted out. And then you got a couple other good players on that team that's just pretty much decided not to play.
You know, what's interesting, too, is when you look at, and this has been the case for the last few years, the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. And, I mean, the East is basically, you have Milwaukee, you have Toronto, Boston. Miami has 41 wins, and they're 2 games ahead of Indiana. But
they're a focused team. They'll be focused because of Pat Riley and Eric's their head coach, Spoelstra, and Jimmy Butler is a focused individual, and he seems to be focused. They're just a little young, but Miami will they will compete. I don't think they're just going to come down and just kind of lay down.
Well, and at the moment, they're the 4 seed, which means, if you got to the second round, if they were to win the first round and get in the second round with Milwaukee, if I'm the Bucks, I don't know that I'd want to play them, because Jimmy Butler is the kind of guy that can carry a team. Now, he's not necessarily carrying a team to a championship or whatever, but in a 7-game series in a building with no fans around,
right?
He's not the kind of guy that's going to be intimidated or
he's not scared. No, he's focused and he's not scared. That's exactly right.
And as you mentioned, they got Spoelstra, they got Pat Riley, who are people who have been there and done that, and who also are not intimidated by any circumstance. And that might be a pretty fascinating series if that's the way it winds up.
Yeah, that's another team that's not ready to win it, but they could cause problems for people.
Yeah. And then in the West, the Lakers go into this with a 5.5-game lead over the Clippers in second place. But it's kind of a logjam. It's only 4 games difference between the Clippers and the Rockets from 2 to 6. And
I don't like the Rockets at all. I wouldn't like it if there was no coronavirus. I don't like their style of play. I don't like. I don't think James Harden or Russell Westbrook are the type of players that you win championships when they're your best players. I don't like how they play. Well, and I don't think this is going to help matters either, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, and the funny thing is the Rockets gave up, so to speak, on Chris Paul when they sent him to OKC and got Russell Westbrook. Meanwhile, Chris Paul has the Thunder at the same record as the Rockets. And he's another player that you really don't want to see in the playoffs as long as he can stay healthy, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's been a big issue, too.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, and he's had a lot on his plate, too. He's the president of the Players Association, so it's, he's been dealing with a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
But, I don't think either of those two teams have a chance. The Lakers took they've got LeBron and Anthony Davis, but they've lost 2 guards, too, that's going to hurt them. The Bradley, losing him is a big loss, and he just decided because of concerns for his family, he didn't come. He's a starting guard, and then of course they lost. He broke his wrist.
Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, Rajon Rondo broke his wrist, so he's going to be out about 6 weeks. 6 weeks, but he'll be back. But those are, when you combine both of those are two big losses.
Yeah, because both of them are outstanding defensive guards as much as anything else, which then helps take the pressure off LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the defensive end of the floor.
That's right.
Here's another wild, inaccurate prediction for you. I believe the San Antonio Spurs will wind up as the 3 seed. They're only 16 games out of that slot at the moment.
They'll be lucky to not fall to 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think they are. Well, they're out of it at the moment, but they're only 4 games out of it.
Okay, so they're not in the top 8. Okay, yeah, I don't even think they'll make playoffs then because their best player's not playing either. He had shoulder surgery.
Yeah, I mean it's. I look at these going back. You and I discussed this before we came on air. Why they brought 22 teams and that kind of stuff. And truth be told, I mean the log jam in the West for number 8 through number whatever Phoenix is, number 12 or whatever in the West is only 4 games. And so I guess that's why, or 6 games, I guess is what it is total. But it's 4 in the win slot. But that is, I guess, why they ended up bringing so many teams, but still you wind up with the Wizards in the East who have already said basically we're not fooling with this, or the Nets who will be in the playoffs who apparently are saying we're not fooling with this, and then in the West, you kind of have that same mixture, but you have you've got 5 extra teams in the West to come and play, and
yeah, but those teams in the West are those teams that are trying to get in the West are considerably better than the Wizards, and of course the best of those teams is probably New Orleans. If they get Zion back, they were playing really good before the shutdown, and they are very talented if they can get in.
Well, and this kind of goes back to the awards thing. The Memphis Grizzlies right now are in that 8th slot trying to hold on to it, and the two teams closest to them, well, Portland's the closest team to them, and then New Orleans and Sacramento are a game behind that. I would love if it worked out, but I mean it's not going to. But it would have been great if it worked out that Memphis and New Orleans both made the playoffs, so we could get to see Ja Morant and Zion Williamson in their rookie years in the playoffs.
Well, they could end up playing they've established a situation where you could have a play-in series if the 9th seed gets within 2 games, I think, or maybe 3 games of the 8th seed, and they're going to have a best of 3. So it could happen.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty neat. I would say, based on what I saw before the shutdown, I would take Ja Morant as the Rookie of the Year, but that mostly has to do with how much time Zion Williamson did not play, in my opinion.
Oh, there's no question about it. John Morant has earned it. I mean, he's played a full year, and Zion's played about a third of that. He's clearly deserved Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Now, when I say that, that measurement doesn't say that Ja Morant's going to be a better long-term NBA player than Zion.
Could be.
I mean, he might be. Yep. But it's not to say he is. It's just to say that based on what we saw through March 11th or whatever, he should be Rookie of the Year.
No, he's definitely a Rookie of the Year, and who knows? We'll see how the future lies. Injuries play a large role, which Zion has had a ton of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, both players have been as advertised.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was really enjoying their rookie year. I mean, it was kind of reminiscent of Jason Kidd, Grant Hill rookie year, if Zion Williamson had played more games. But going back to that, they were in the case of Kidd and Grant coming in the NBA, they were hyped coming in, and they lived up to the hype in their rookie years and really throughout their careers. Yeah,
both great careers. I thought you were going to go back to Bird and Magic.
Well, that was just too easy.
Yeah.
2 of the greatest players ever in the same class. That's just too easy. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag. Well, John, I guess the report was either yesterday or this morning of that nature.
that California has decided to move all of its fall sports, well, not all, but the major ones, to the spring. Football, volleyball, cross country are the ones that coincide with fall sports we have here in Kentucky. And, California's, I guess, a state known to do its own thing, so that's not too surprising. And the thought I had for myself was this. I would not want us to do that here in Kentucky. But at the same time, if we're talking about trying to give as many seniors or juniors an opportunity to play the sport, within their year, graduation year, that kind of thing, within the school year, I mean, if those are the choices that wind up being made, I guess that's better than not playing them at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the least of the bad or the worst options, I guess, other than just not playing at all. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little reluctant to, California's kind of on their own island sometimes, to be perfectly honest with you. And plus, they got weather that they could probably play. They could play any sport at any time, to be honest with you. They don't have quite the weather issues that we have, but I still think that right now our approach is the right one. It's kind of more of a wait and see, and I think it's going to have to probably be a surgical approach to it. Like that means like golf, you can go ahead, and maybe another sport you may have to wait a little bit longer. And as we mentioned, the numbers have to change. So just be honest. There's some. What we had yesterday, Sunday, we had 970 cases. I mean, we're not going to be playing sports if there's 900 and something cases. I can tell you that. So, those things have got to change. And I think the best thing that we have on our side is time and patience. We're going to have to be patient.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. I guess that I get a little bit annoyed sometimes as I see people who are engaged with high school athletics, on social media, talking about, let the kids play and this kind of thing. And my response is, look, you're supposed to be, I understand you're hurting for your players and you want to be able to do for them, especially when it comes to preparing them for a season and that kind of thing, if you're going to have one, or just being around them. But at the same time, you're the people who are supposed to be kind of setting the example of, look, I don't have to agree with the choices they're making, but these are the choices made, and we're going to have to figure out how to work around it. I mean, there are always problems looking for a resolution, and I think that's kind of the way to look at all this. And that does come with having patience. You just have to have patience with certain circumstances, and they're outside of your control if you're a coach or an administrator or whatever, or a student athlete. I mean, my goodness, we have to learn these lessons, I guess, at some point in life, that some things are outside of your control.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. I mean, I struggle with patience, I can tell you that. But of all things, patience is what you got to have right now. And I know it's easier to say that when you're an adult as opposed to maybe a teenager in high school when you only get one shot at this.
Right.
But it's just something right now that we've got to have, and I hope the decision makers do not look at Twitter and social media and Facebook. I mean, too many people oftentimes make poor choices based on the few that make the loudest of noises. Mm-hmm. And so again, this is a day-by-day, week-by-week situation, and that's basically all we can say. And of all groups, I guarantee you nobody wants sports more than me and you. I mean, this show is about high school sports for the most part, and it's difficult to have a sport that's around high school sports when there's no high school sports.
Yeah, well, and the other thing about all this is that just a quick update. So as of right now, there will be another KHSA meeting on July 28th. That's a week from tomorrow. And the present guidelines are set to expire on August 2nd. So next Tuesday, we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen going forward. And as you mentioned, it could be different for each sport, and that's something we have to be prepared for in terms of when they can start, what games scheduled will get kept on the schedule, what games might get dropped, that kind of thing. But golf is showing us a way at the youth level of how they can do it. Maybe cross country and soccer, because we do have some professional soccer examples that we might be able to follow in terms of how, the guidelines and that kind of thing. And that's what we have to look at, and that's what we're looking at right now, and hopefully we'll have these seasons on as close a schedule as possible. This has been the Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.